Greetings, Monsterites. Welcome to this archive of vampires of folklore. The types I will be focusing on will be blood drinkers alone. Not energy vampires, nor psychic, only blood. This is in order to keep this glossary narrowed down and avoid straying onto the countless other beings and entities out there. Thank you to the supporters at Patreon for selecting and helping to expedite these videos into existence. And final note, each vampire will be presented with place of origin, basic features, threat level, and monstrosity level. Just how unhuman and insane it appears. An Abchanchu is a vampire that disguises itself as a helpless, elderly person preying upon unsuspecting travelers, whom they will feed on when the time is right. Abartak was an Irish malevolent dwarf who possessed a powerful magic. In an alternative legend, after being killed and buried, he rises from his grave thirsting for fresh blood. This West African vampire flies about at night in search of that delicious dark red fluid in the form of a firefly. If caught, it will revert to human form and possess its opponent, turning them into a vampiric witch. It is said to be quite an unstoppable being. These vampiric creatures range from the size of a mouse to a cat. They seem to wear both fur and plates. They lure children and the very elderly to pounce on and pierce with their sharp teeth. During the day, the Asema appears as an elderly man or woman, but at night it removes the wrinkled skin and takes form as a glowing blue ball of floating light that can pass through tiny holes in order to reach its sleeping victims. An ambiguous creature with the ability to shapeshift into various known animals as well as humans, dead or alive, and goblinoid creatures. It's also able to manipulate its gravitational pressure. This human/bat hybrid has the ability to possess human corpses and has a terrifying appearance, enough to stun a person or even make them faint. A vampiric human or humanoid revenant that lives in caves and feeds on the blood of animals. A vampire described as a revenant that feeds on weaker humans, such as the young, elderly, or ill. Yet another Indian revenant, although a slightly bigger threat, as this type lures its victims into the forest where they are attacked and killed by its dogs, after which the Bantu Saburo enjoys the bloody spoils of battle. Baoba Sith are said to come into being after dying while in childbirth. These undead women may have hooved feet or even have the capability of shapeshifting into several animal types. Bezkos are beings composed mainly of skin alone. They will slither and crawl about until they plump up with the blood they feed on, after which they can move a little more regularly, like a human. This vampire feeds on the blood of both humans and animals. It has a terrifying demeanor and requires blood offerings and sacrifices to be appeased. A large-eyed, skeleton-less, hairy vampire that can create more of its own kind by feeding the victim dirt from its cave. Another variation, Blut Ausager, although similar, has more methods to turning a human. A tall, pale monster with black hair and backwards feet. Even though it has a weakness of no joints in its knees, it has very poisonous urine, and to get those red juices, it beats its victim until it's a sack of liquefied innards which it sucks up with a straw. A humanoid vicious killer that enjoys drinking blood from the skull. These are vampiric ghosts of slain enemies of battle. A creature described as a giant leech, the length of a human, that has 9 eyes and is attracted by the smell of a horse. A Mayan god of night, death, and sacrifice, with features most likely inspired by the vampire bat. An undead vampire who appears with a large smile on their face and has the ability to turn others by vomiting blood onto them. Born of Oceanus and Thea, Cercopes were malicious, possibly tailed, human/goblinoid beings that drank the blood of sleeping infants. Described as an aggressive woman riding upon a tiger, prostitutes or women whom suffered an unnatural death may become one. They feed on the blood of men. A witch type that feeds on the blood of young children. A clan said to be the direct descendants of Judas Iscariot that have red hair and leave a bite resembling Roman numeral 30 or XXX. Mapuche sorcerers may become chonchons. In this form, they appear as a flying human head covered in feathers, lifted by large wing-like ears and sporting sharp talons. They feed on sleeping people. A witch type that takes the form of a demonic cat which can kill simply by licking the victim. the goat sucker. Descriptions range from rabid dog-like to bat-winged scaly alien hybrids, known for killing and sucking the blood out of livestock and other domesticated animals. A pale Aztec demigoddess, follower of the evil goddess Tlazolteotl, created when a mother dies during childbirth, may appear attractive or as a hag and can shapeshift into a few animal forms. Sivapipirtan is a younger version. Ancient humans/gods who helped farm the lands, but soon discovered an insatiable thirst for blood. An undead beautiful woman that prowls graveyards, luring men from which she drains blood via a kiss on the lips. Lilith, Adam's first wife in Hebrew folklore, left him and eventually took form of a massive black cat that hunts for newborns from which to suck blood. A shadow demon formed when a corpse improperly decays. At night, it leaves the corpse in search of blood. A demoness of sorts that may appear as a beautiful, seductive woman, spirit form, or as cats, birds, or other animals. In whichever form, they're not too finicky whom they drain of the velvety nectar. A floating ball of light similar to a will-o'-the-wisp that possibly originates from the soul of a child that died before baptism. It is said to sometimes feed on children's blood. Taking the form of a giant human skeleton, this Japanese myth is summoned from those that have died in battle and had not been buried. It enjoys tearing heads off and slurping up the fountain of blood. A demonic creature that relishes in ruining successful human reproduction by causing infertility and miscarriages, or simply destroying infants by devouring their blood. A red-eyed undead vampire that prowls and feeds from late day into the night. A revenant vampire of a deceased Albanian of Turkish descent. A half-human female with lower goat half fae that in certain variations lures men to drink their blood. Another fae type that appears as a beautiful woman that particularly enjoys the blood of poets. This Welsh vampire fits the description of the stereotypical Halloween witch hag with a hooked nose. She may have huge bat wings and is said to feed on the very young or old, little by little every night until their death. This oddity has the form of a three-legged, feathered goat, or sometimes a humanoid goat who carries a basket and is set to drink the blood of both cattle and farmers. Appearing as a floating ball of light emitting odd noises, this vampiric being lures travelers into forests to absorb their blood, and hunting dogs may be utilized to support the effort. A green or purple bird that's formed from the blood of a murdered victim, which then seeks out the killer to destroy them by drinking their blood. After this, it ascends to the spirit realm to announce the retribution. A 3-foot astral or spirit form, leech, that seeks open wounds from which to suck blood. Requiring blood to stay animate, these are the dead from suicide that are brought back into an enslaved zombie-like state, within which they can shapeshift into rodents and bats, raise the dead, and hypnotize, though physically they remain quite weak. Istraros come to being from children that were born on Saturday and died before baptism. A juboko is a Japanese tree yokai that snatches up passerbyers, entangles them in its branches, and sucks the blood out of them. Keres are female dark spirits or goddesses of death that appear above battlefields in search of dying soldiers whom they can suck dry of that liquid human essence. This vampire lies all day until nightfall when it ventures to the town it used to inhabit as a person, knocking on doors in search of human prey. Recently deceased revenants of those who lived unholy lives that terrorize humans and deprive them of their blood. La Diablesse is described as a beautiful woman carrying a fan and wearing a large hat. She roams quiet areas luring men in her long dress which hides her hooved foot. A female vampire type that comes into being from death while giving birth. Unlike most vampires, she lacks the long fangs, but rather sucks blood with 2 holes on the back of her neck. She can appear attractive with very long hair, and it is possible to rehabilitate her back into humanhood. Created from the cannibalism of an executed person, this vampire lures and seduces a person which, if successful, then has intercourse with and drains the blood of. It can change into a floating ball of light and possibly into a wolf-like creature if almost killed. A revenant arisen from a person charred by fire that died on a battlefield, to which it returns at night to feed on dying soldiers. Not to be confused with the werewolf creature, this little monkey-like vampire stands at just 2 inches tall and only drinks the little bit of blood that it requires to live from sleeping female humans.
Lugaru.
See information on the Asema. Appearing as a beautiful woman by day, a mandurugo will grow wings and a long sharp tongue by night. The tongue is used to make an incision in the skin of an unsuspecting male victim, from which this vampire can then draw blood. A being that lives within the pandan plant that will attack intruders or abusers by latching onto them and sucking their blood. A small black creature with a beard of water plants and webbed hands and feet that feeds on children that it drowns. A winged, hideous humanoid creature often depicted as female, whose name means self-segmenter due to its ability to separate its torso from the lower half of its body in order to enter a stealthier hunt for blood, which is assisted by its long proboscis-like tongue. Created when a werewolf or witch returns into unlife, may appear as a separated chest and upper body floating about at night when on the hunt. A vampire that feeds solely on the blood of cattle. One who is dead, muli or mulo, come into being after suffering an unnatural death without a proper funeral. They appear similar as they did in life, with the distinction which may be a change in one of their appendages, hair color, or other anatomical feature. It may also have the ability to shapeshift into a horse, ram, or even go invisible. Appearing as a bloated corpse with red skin, this vampire may shapeshift into various small and even tiny creatures. In some tellings, it is more ghostly in nature. A spirit that takes over the body of a beautiful woman that then seduces a man in order to get closer to him to drink that blood. A type of yokai that appears human until its head detaches and floats about in search of blood at night. An almost unstoppable humanoid revenant that feeds on human blood. At night, this seemingly normal woman detaches her head and goes into flight with trailing organs below it that drip acidic bile. It will hunt for blood from most people but prefers that from women in labor and even more so, children. Afterward, it will re-enter the body using vinegar to shrink its guts. A very large flying snake which can paralyze a victim, making the act of blood sucking almost effortless, may also have the ability to shapeshift into various animals. Depending on the specific region and culture, this spirit may be described as a ghost hopping on one leg, a strange small woman, or a monkey. Either way, it is believed to suck blood from the toes of sleeping victims. A huge winged serpent god that sucks the blood of sleeping people. A vampiric creation of a former evil person or of one that had committed incest with their mother. This revenant will hunt down and kill all within its family before going on to others. It is very fast and strong with some superior mental powers. After having risen from its grave, the Platnik will hunt its family members for the next 40 days, at which point only a lightning bolt can destroy it. After this period and having its fill of blood, it will become more human, with slight physical differences and retaining its ability to shapeshift into a canine form. A handsome human male that has the ability to shapeshift into a long-haired black dog that hunts for blood at night. Appearing as an old dark-skinned woman with poisonous fingernails, this witch of a vampire will attack travelers directly as well as via magic using a string to enter a building in search of a sleeping person whom it will prod itself into, serving as a straw sucking out the blood. An Albanian woman whom has committed sin may turn into this vampire after death. It is described as having large glowing eyes, with high heels on its feet, and like the Ogulgen, with some dirt in its navel from its grave. The Sampiro is a very vengeful vampire, and one may be made aware of it from the kissing sounds it makes. Appearing as an ugly hag of a witch, this vampiric person sucks the blood of infants in the tiny form of an insect. The Sigbin is an odd creature that appears to walk backwards with its head between its hind legs. It appears goat-like without the horns, with long ears and flexible tail. Its ability to suck blood through the victim's shadow. Sukuyant. See information on the Asema. After an unclean life, the now undead strigoi rises from its grave twice a day to feed on blood. It can shapeshift into various animals and even become invisible. These beings are able to detach their body from their legs and change into a bird form for hunting infants. If they do not feed for over a month, they will die. When a heretic dies, it returns as this vampire with a stinger under its tongue that aids in its blood feastings. It hunts between noon and midnight. These were cursed undead that had red hair and large heads, a unibrow, possibly a double set of teeth, no armpit or pubic hair, and used their left hands. They drank human blood and had the strength to beat a person into a pulp or tear them apart. Born of a child that died without being baptized, this small vampire will feed on the blood of livestock and sports claws and fangs. This undead vampire is said to have the ability to cause eclipses and astral travel. It appears as having pale, dried skin and can shapeshift to several small to tiny animals. Its bite does not leave a mark. This is a spirit form that enters and animates corpses, through which it then plays out its evil deeds and feasts on blood. It may enter and leave the dead body at any time. A red-faced undead vampire that will find its family to feed on first, doing so by poking a hole in the victim's chest with a spike from under its tongue. Upon its destruction, it will burst into a mass of rats. This vampire aims to feed on its family and loved ones and to possibly convert them as well. And here are just some of the related or mistaken monsters for being pure blood consumers. Alp drinks blood and breast milk. Aswang. Unlike what a lot of social media leads to, and even TV shows, the aswang, albeit often used as a general term for a variety of Filipino monsters, also is used to more accurately refer to a specific dark shapeshifter. By day a human, and by night a dark black dog, wild pig, or even bird. Its delicacies, human livers and fetuses, of the living or dying, they don't discriminate. The bajang of Malaysia. It needs to be fed milk and eggs, or else it will turn on its master. Dodelekker, more so a ghoul than a vampire. Draugr, an Icelandic very specific type of undead that was given more vampiric lore by later, let's say, researchers. Flying Head, similar to Chonchons, though not said to solely feed on blood. Jiangshi, or the hopping vampire, is a life force drainer. Moroi, again more of an energy vampire. Nosferat, this type doesn't only feed on blood, but is an energy vampire as well. Leyak, this Japanese witch monster does suck the blood of newborn and unborn babies, but is also said to feed on corpses. Obaifo, it is living and feeds on the blood of children as well as people's misery and fear. Pontianak, this monster will also eat entire unborn children. Succubus, a type of energy vampire. Vieshchi, will feed on its own flesh. Vrikolakas. Greek vrikolakas are more so cannibals and flesh eaters than blood vampires. Yiramayahu goes a bit beyond just drinking blood. If you found value in this video, please consider supporting my work at Patreon. Thank you Christian, Toby, Rain, Tammy, Joseph, Patrick, Tim, and our newest patron, Rita. I know I could have gone into more detail with certain vampires on this list, but I did want to keep it concise and serve as a starting point to your research or interest. There are potentially many more that could have been added to this list, but the information available on them is just too ambiguous, or simply too lacking. As always, you're welcome to request a video covering a particular type of bloodsucker, or discuss in the comments below and see what other knowledgeable monsterites have to share. Not to mention, we have a great Discord community as well. I have been, am, want to be, and so will continue to be Monster Master Arthur. See you in the next one.